My name is Molly, and today I will be discussing students with hearing impairments and the adjustments that I, as a future high school teacher, can make to ensure these students can have the best access to the curriculum and support the students' place in the social environment of the classroom. I have chosen to do this topic because it's something I struggled with while I was in school. In high school, I had no diagnosis at the time, but found if I wasn't sitting at the front of the classroom, I struggled to hear teachers' instructions and often found myself getting in trouble for asking students around me to explain the instructions to me again. This was something I found incredibly frustrating, and because of this reason, I am choosing to educate myself further on the topic to hopefully help a student of mine in the future. Hearing impairment is a spectrum and refers to the partial or total inability to hear, with different levels of hearing abilities. In a secondary school setting, students might use hearing aids, cochlear implants, or students like myself needing to rely on visual support, such as captions or written instructions they can access on their own. In Australia, inclusive education is guided by policies written in the Disability Discrimination Act and the nationally consistent collection of data, both of which require teachers to make reasonable adjustments so that all students can participate in the same way as their peers. This ability to adjust is particularly important in high school because classrooms are often fast-paced and loud, with content-heavy lessons, especially as students start to reach the HC years. Many of these lessons will rely on verbal instruction and discussion, which can be difficult for students experiencing hearing impairments. Unlike a primary school setting, students move between multiple teachers, subjects, and classrooms throughout the day, making the consistent support needed difficult to achieve, but as teachers, it is our role to ensure that these needs are met consistently. Without the appropriate adjustments, students with hearing impairments are at higher risk of missing key information, falling behind academically, and experiencing social isolation. In this presentation, I will explain how hearing impairments impact students in a high school classroom, then explore adjustments teachers can make to better suit student needs. And finally, I will evaluate these strategies and decipher which are best and most practical to apply in my future lessons. I will also include a short student case study to demonstrate how these adjustments work in practice. The first thing I want to talk about is the impacts of hearing impairments on students and how these impairments actually affect students in a high school classroom. Firstly, students may have difficulty accessing verbal instruction. For example, in a Year 10 history lesson, I might be explaining the causes of World War I while writing key points on the board. Even something as simple as turning away while speaking to write on the board, or if there's background noise from the classroom or outside, a student with a hearing impairment may miss important information. This becomes even more challenging when multiple students are speaking. In a typical classroom discussion, students will call out, speak quietly, or talk over one another. While the typical teacher might be happy with this classroom environment because it is a demonstration of engagement, for a student with hearing impairment, this can make it almost impossible to follow the conversation and for them to engage in the topic. Secondly, hearing impairments can affect a student's ability to take notes. High school students will often need to develop the ability to listen and write at the same time. However, if a student is concentrating on trying to hear what is being said, they might not be able to take effective notes, which will impact their ability to study later. Thirdly, there are impacts on language and literacy development. Students who are further on the hearing spectrum with little ability to hear may struggle with speaking because they don't often hear it spoken. These students can experience delays in development of vocabulary, grammar, and comprehension skills. This can affect their performance across many subjects, but particularly the heavy reading subjects like English and history. Finally, there are also some social impacts of hearing impairments. High school is a time where friendships between students are extremely important, with friends often taking greater influence over parental guide. If a student struggles to follow along with conversations, especially in a group setting, they might start to feel excluded or withdrawn from a social aspect. These challenges highlight that adjustments must support the academic success and social inclusion. The next thing I'd like to talk about is a case study of a student with a hearing impairment to explain the importance of understanding this topic and knowing how to make adjustments to suit student needs. Imagine a Year 8 student named Bailey, who has had moderate hearing impairment and uses hearing aids. In his religion class, discussions are a major tool used by his teacher as a part of learning. Before adjustments are made, Bailey often finds that he struggles to follow conversations because multiple students speak at once. He tends to miss key points, finds it difficult to contribute, and begins to feel less confident participating and answering questions. He also finds it challenging to keep up with note-taking because he is so focused on trying to hear the teacher speak that he can't write while trying to listen. After issues have been noticed by the teacher begins to make adjustments, and you can see a clear shift in the classroom. The teacher ensures that only one student is speaking at a time and repeats or summarizes key contributions of other students. Instructions are written clearly on the board, and lesson content is supported with visual slides that can be accessed by all students in the Google Classroom. The teacher also checks in with Bailey to check that he is understanding and provides guided notes to reduce cognitive load for him, making it easier to balance listening and writing as well as the social aspect of the classroom. As a result of these changes, Bailey is able to follow discussion more easily and contribute his ideas on the topic, helping him to feel better included. His confidence improves and his academic performance begins to reflect his actual ability rather than the barrier created by hearing loss. This example shows how relatively simple adjustments can have significant impact on students. The first thing I'd like to talk about is adjustments that can be made in the classroom. The first of these adjustments being the classroom environment. In a high school setting, noise can be a major barrier for all students, but even more of an issue for a student with hearing impairments. Classrooms often involve group work, movement, and external noise. To address this in the future, I would try to minimize background noise as much as possible. This can be done by closing doors to limit outside noise and setting clear expectations around classroom behavior and noise level. Seating is also crucial. I would position the students where they have a clear view of my face and the board. For example, in a Year 11 religion classroom, I would ensure the student is seated near the front so they can clearly see both explanations and diagrams, and also have the work posted on Google Classroom for the students to access the work from their own devices. I would also be mindful of my positioning while teaching. Rather than speaking while writing on the board, I would pause, speak out loud to the class, getting my points across, and then take a brief moment to write on the board after I'd finished speaking. These adjustments are very simple yet extremely effective and easy to apply. However, it doesn't eliminate all challenges, particularly in dynamic classroom environments. The next area I'd like to discuss is instructional adjustments. This is how I will deliver my content. In high school, instructions are often complex. For example, in a Year 10 geography class, practical work such as a simple fieldwork around the school taking samples. Students in this case would be asked to follow multiple steps, record results, and complete analysis questions. To support a student with hearing impairments, I would provide written instructions, break tasks into clear, manageable steps, and use visual support such as diagrams and slides. For instance, instead of only explaining a task verbally while outside, I would display the steps on the board before leaving the classroom for the practical to ensure instructions are clear, allowing any further questions students have to be asked individually while they're at work outside. In a religion classroom, when I'm analyzing a text, I would display quotes and key ideas while discussing them, ensuring the student is not relying solely on listening. I would also check for understanding regularly. Instead of asking, "Does everyone understand?" I might ask a few students to explain the task back to me or complete a quick written check. Doing this and asking multiple students questions will ensure I know the students with hearing impairment isn't falling behind, but also making sure they aren't singled out and the only one being questioned. These strategies align with the Universal Design for Learning as they support all students. However, they do require consistent planning and awareness. Assistive technology is another area that can significantly improve access. For example, using an FM system allows my voice to be transmitted directly to the student's hearing device, reducing the impacts of background noise. Quickly, I just wanted to show you a video made by students with hearing impairments that shows how these devices in their classroom are used when they're not used correctly, and how this affects their learning.
You all have enough prizes?
You alright, love?
Yeah.
Good day.
Yeah, PE was called off because of the rain.
No.
And history was so hilarious. I'm absolutely starving. What's for dinner?
Your favourite, lasagna.
Yay!
Rebecca! Wake up, Rebecca. You're late. This has been going on for the last half an hour. It's meant to be under your pillow, not mine.
I'm sorry.
It's raining today, so you better look after your aids. Because remember, when you're 18, you're going to have to start paying for your own replacement.
Sorry, I'm late. It took me so long to get ready. I just wanted to hide my A's today. I'm just going to do this then.
Oh, that's fair enough. Some people can't really hide those because they hurt.
Yeah. How was the Charlie party?
Oh, Charlie's party, right.
Pardon? Can you say that again, please? Just forget it. Let's just say it at school.
Right then, so who can remember who we were studying last week? Robert?
Martin Luther King.
Yes, that's right, Martin Luther King. He was the famous one, wasn't he, that said about the fact that we have a dream. Is that right? Did he say we have a dream, or did he say something different at all? Yes, Ben.
You forgot to put the mic on.
Oh. Oh God, could you just come here and show me how to do it, please? Never remember how to do these things.
There.
Ah, okay. Very good. Right, so Martin Luther King, he said, we have a dream, or anything else? Oh, gosh. Dear. It was actually I have a dream, not we, I. And that was Martin Luther King, who was a really important individual. He led a rally towards Washington in 1963. Okay, so we've discussed several ways of direct action in the civil rights movement. I want you to get into groups now and think about how effective that actually was. Okay, you've got 5 minutes to do that.
You know, and your part, you're so funny, you know, this guy put the speaker. How is that, when you paying them, how much is it, £152?
£100.
I've just noticed the time, the bell's about to go any minute, okay, so you can start packing up. But before you do that, don't forget about next week's homework, all right? We're going to be doing a really important test, okay, next Tuesday. So I want you to revise all the work we've done so far, okay?
Oh my gosh, it was such a bad lesson. I have a headache now.
Me too. I've just got to put something on.
Okay, yeah, sure. Hi.
Yeah, the best bit. My parents were at home and he stayed up till 2 a.m. It was freezing in the rain.
In situations where these technologies were not available for the students, I would ensure that all videos used in class are captioned and would provide the transcripts where possible. However, technology is not always the only solution. It must be used alongside effective teaching strategies, with both the teacher and student need to feel confident using. meaning a discussion should be had between teacher, student, and possibly the parents. Communication strategies are also something that should be looked at. In my classroom, I would ensure I gain the student's attention before speaking, for example, by making eye contact or saying their name. During discussions, I would manage taking turns carefully to avoid students calling out and speaking over one another. For example, I might say, "Let's hear from one person at a time," or "Please raise your hand before answering," and then summarize each response. This ensures that the students can follow the conversation while still being involved. I would also rephrase information when needed to get a clearer point across, rather than simply repeating it in the same way. These strategies not only support the student with hearing impairments, improve their ability to engage, but also improve clarity for the entire class. Supporting social inclusion is another essential area to look at. In group work, I would assign clear roles to ensure that students are actively involved. For example, in a group project, the student might take on a structured role, such as researcher or presenter. I would also encourage inclusive communication amongst peers, such as facing each other when speaking and avoiding talking over one another. By creating an inclusive classroom culture, I can help ensure the student feels a sense of belonging. The final thing I'd like to do in this presentation is to critically evaluate these strategies by considering both their strengths and their limitations. Firstly, environmental adjustments, such as reducing noise and static energy inside the classroom, is highly effective because they are so simple, low cost, and can be implemented immediately in any classroom. They benefit not only the student with hearing impairments, but also the entire class by improving overall focus. However, their limitation is that they cannot completely eliminate noise, especially in a dynamic high school setting where movement and discussion are part of learning. This means they are helpful but not sufficient on their own. Secondly, instructional adjustments, like providing written instructions and visual supports, are extremely valuable because they are reducing reliance on verbal communication and align with universal design of learning. These strategies support all learners, particularly in content-heavy subjects. However, they do require consistent planning and presentation from the teacher. In a busy high school environment, maintaining this level of consistency across multiple classrooms can be challenging, which may impact how effectively they are applied. Thirdly, assessive technologies such as FM systems and captions can significantly improve access by enhancing sound clarity and improving alternative ways to engage with content. These tools can be made substantial differences in a student's learning, particularly in lecture-style lessons. However, their effectiveness depends on proper use, availability, and training. Technology can fail, may not always be accessible, and requires both the teacher and the student to feel confident using it. Therefore, it should support teaching, not replace good teaching practices. Next is communication strategies, such as managing turn-taking and rephrasing information, which are highly effective in promoting inclusion and ensuring clarity during discussion. They help their students stay engaged and also improve classroom structure overall. The limitation, however, is that they rely heavily on teacher awareness and consistency. In fast-paced discussions, it can be difficult to control every interaction, meaning some information may still be missed. Finally, social inclusion strategies are essential because they address not just academic success, but the student's sense of belonging. Assigning roles and encouraging inclusive peer communication can greatly improve confidence and participation. However, these strategies depend on the attitudes and cooperation of other students. Without a strong classroom culture of respect and inclusion, these approaches may not be fully effective. Overall, this evaluation shows that no single strategy is enough on its own. The most effective approach is a combination of strategies tailored to the individual student and their specific needs. These adjustments also require ongoing reflection, time, and collaboration with support staff, specialists, and families. Most importantly, inclusion must be meaningful. Simply placing a student in the classroom without proper support does not guarantee participation or success. As teachers, it is our responsibility to actively create environments where students can genuinely engage and achieve. In conclusion, students with hearing impairments face significant challenges in high school classrooms, particularly in accessing spoken instructions and participating socially. However, Through thoughtful, meaningful adjustments such as modifying the environment, adapting instruction, using modern technology, improving forms of communication, teachers can create inclusive and accessible learning environments. Importantly, implementing these strategies benefits all students, not just those with hearing impairments. As high school teachers, it is our responsibility to ensure that every student has the opportunity to engage, participate, and succeed. Thank you for listening.